Hi, this is a little recycled mini book that I've made for my partner in the Recycle Mini Book Swap on Mylanders Women's Community. I thought it would be very difficult to photograph it for my blog, so it seems easier that I would just show it on a video. So to hold the pages together, I've actually used a sleeve. Now both the sleeve and the book cover are made from a frozen pizza box, and the actual paper covering is sprayed with Ranger's spray ink in raisin colour, and I've also sprayed it with some Pearl-Ex powder in pearl mixed with water. Inside there are 3 signatures in the book, each one containing 2 pages. The fibres are just tied into the binding at the back, and if I just pull it over, you can see it there. So various fibres just tied in there to hide the binding. Inside the first page is a little description of me and what the book is about. And techniques used on this page are I painted it with acrylic paint and then stamped it with Ranger inks and a crackle stamp. I then found an illuminated letter on the internet, printed it on my inkjet printer, and then coloured it and surrounded it with peel and stick. And I managed to find some small letters also in peel and stick, so I added my partner's name. The next page here is, I believe it's a Ranger stamp. Once again, underneath is painted with golden fluid acrylic paint. We've got a piece of mesh down here, and the stamp here is stamped. It's an old stamp that I've had for a very long time. It's stamped with coffee bean archival ink. Once again, acrylic paints. I think these were not the golden ones, they are Daily Rowners. This is Claudine Helmuth sticky back canvas, and you can probably see here I've got the word art. It looks like it's been stamped, but in actual fact it's been embossed. And I found that with the Claudine Helmuth sticky back canvas, sometimes depending on which embossing powder you use, the gloss disappears into the fabric, so you're left with a beautiful, almost printed effect. Then up here I've got a glittery heart and a small diamante. This is quite a quirky page. Once again, green acrylic paint. Around the edges I've got white oil pastel. It's stamped, the stamp is stamped in StazOn ink, and I used a white souffle pen, a Sakura white souffle pen for the tick. Here's my quirky lady. She was just a piece that I drew, and I originally drew her without any hair, and then I glued her down onto a piece of vintage text and applied 3 pearls as a kind of a necklace and printed off on the computer quirky. Glued that down here. The background paint for this is Halo Rose Gold by Lumiere. It's a fabulous paint, and you can see the way it shines, but if you catch it outside of the light, it's definitely pink. So if you do get the chance to get your hands on some Lumiere Halo Gold, it's fabulous. On this page here I've painted with once again with acrylics, and just doodling I drew a small flower attached to ribbon, and I've laid it on some old some vintage music. On this one here I stamped I actually cut out 2 hearts for something else, and I used the offcut of the paper to make a stencil, and I used a dabber to get that very shiny silver look. and then I stamped some very small music notes. It's from a Hero Arts circle stamp, and then I surrounded it with some doodles. Well, you can see that. On this page, once again, yellow acrylic background. I stamped out punched out a butterfly and applied some Starburst stickles to it, and attached 2 gems, and just wrote fly free, and did a little kind of a swirly tail. This has to be one of my all-time favourite stamps. It's a free stamp that I received with a magazine that I subscribe to every month, and I painted the background in, once again, it's a Lumiere paint, and from certain angles it looks gold, and from certain angles it looks green, and from certain angles it looks blue. That's just the beauty of the way this paint behaves. I stamped the stamp with a StazOn, and then I coloured in the mouth, the eyeshadow, and the white in either gel pens or it was a souffle pen for the eyes. More acrylic paint as a background, and here I've got a heart that I painted with bronze paint, and I overstamped the heart with a crackle stamp, and I overstamped the page with a very small text stamp that I have, and then I applied 3 very tiny pearls there just to give some more texture on this page. On this page I used it's like a faux metal technique. It's quite thick, it's quite heavy, and has many layers, starting with a gesso layer underneath. I use black gesso on this, and then I use metal paint, and then I use gold, I use high build gel, and then I use gel with beads in it, so lots of different kinds of layers, and then to finish it all off I apply some greens and apply a water wash of white over the top of those, and then just to finish it I've applied attached a brass key. Here's a page with little testers that I've been doing. This is once again stuck onto a page with acrylic paints. This one here is a sheet that I heated. It's like a fairy film, and I glued it to a cardstock and then heated it with my heat gun, and it went from being soft and white and pearly to being brown and green and blue, and I thought that effect was quite nice. And just in contrast to that, I took some craft cardstock and did a stamp on it in orange. I thought the contrast between those two was pretty cool. Now on here I've got a piece of, I've painted the background in a burnt orange, and then here I've attached some mesh fabric. This is a paisley stamp that I've embossed in gold, and the heart, I've actually made the heart out of a leftover from an ATC set I was making, where I took some very fine stripes of paper. This was a scrap that I had left over, so I punched a heart and attached that. Once again, more doodling. Quite a pale page for me. I normally like really bright colours. This is a sort of an aqua blue. I doodled 3 flowers on it, coloured them using Sakura pens, and then put a tiny little bee just up there. This is from my stash of old magazines and old papers. The date on this was February 25th, 1931, and I found this by appointment, so I thought that was quite cute that it was so old by appointment. And then I used the Forget stamp across the top just to signify that that was something I'd forgotten. Not that I'm that old. Now this is a technique I'm playing with at the moment. I haven't perfected it, but I'm liking the way it looks. This is Claudine Hellmuth sticky back canvas, but on the wrong side. This is the sticky side. So what I did was to cut out 3 hearts and attach them to the sticky side of the canvas. I didn't press them very hard, just enough so that they wouldn't move. And then I applied black embossing powder over the top, and then used my heat gun to set that. And then I removed the 3 hearts and then applied pink embossing powder in the spot where the 3 hearts were. And I don't know if you can see that, it sort of looks like puddles of water. It's just such a cool finish. And it actually feels really quite interesting. So this is a technique that I'm still going to continue to play with. Once again, in the background here we have acrylic paint over stamped with a script stamp this time. And the lady here is a transfer. I've got sheets of images that I transfer onto canvas. She's transferred onto ordinary canvas, not Claudine Hellmuth. This is just ordinary artist canvas. And then she's mounted on a piece of board and just text that I produced on my computer. Another technique here is the Tim Holtz Distress ink pads dabbed onto my craft mat and then sprayed with water, and then moving the paper around in that water to get this sort of wet look. The butterfly in the centre there has crackle glaze on his wings, and he's actually stitched into the binding. I have no idea where I was going with this page here. It's pale pink. I never do pale pink sand flesh colour. Even my people aren't this colour. So I have no idea where it came from, but in the end I decided that some mica on it would look nice, and then what I've done is attached a brass swallow just to finish it off. We're back into the colours that I prefer, which is sort of greens and limes. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous shade. I put some German sheet music, vintage German sheet music over the top here, did some dribbles of white ink, and then I stamped over the top of it with a StazOn ink using a free stamp that I'd received from my magazine again. And then in the very back page of the book I've done a steampunk sort of a look with a very grungy dark green background with the number 8 in I think it was Wild Honey or Rust Distress ink. And then over the top of that I've stamped some cogs, and then I've taken some watch parts that I have, I think I got them from eBay, and then I've just glued them onto there with glossy accents. Now, as you can see, the book's quite thick. 3 signatures, 2 pages per signature. It's quite difficult to sew, actually. I used a waxed linen thread to sew it, and to hold the pages together I made this cover. So there we go. That's the little mini book that I made for my partner in the recycled mini book swap. If you have any questions, please let me know. Drop me a note, or if you want to see still photos, I'll try and put some up on my blog. Thank you very much for watching.